Hello everyone, I welcome you to my YouTube channel Professor Civil Mandal. Here I speak about civil engineering and you will find my various video lectures regarding various topics of civil engineering over here. So, till in the last video lecture we were learning about the boundary layer theory, and in this new chapter we will learn about the laminar and turbulent flows. So previously we had read about the laminar and turbulent flow in the fluid kinematics, and the laminar and turbulent flow is determined whether the flow is laminar or turbulent or transitional is determined by the Reynolds number that we came to know about in the sixth chapter, that is the flow through pipes. So the pipe flows are divided into the laminar flow, transition flow and turbulent flow depending on the Reynolds number. So the laminar flow, we know that whenever the Reynolds number is less than 2000, the flow is laminar, and if it is greater than 4000, then the flow is turbulent, and if it is between 2000 and 4000, the flow is transitional. So the laminar flow, in which the liquid moves in layers, one layer sliding over another layer without mixing, and hence the shear force is exclusively due to the viscosity. The laminar flow and Reynolds number, the relation between the laminar flow and Reynolds number is that for a circular pipe, the laminar flow is defined to have the flow Reynolds number less than 2000. If the Reynolds number is less than 2000, then the flow through the pipe will be a laminar flow, and Reynolds number is by this formula, that is Re is equal to rho Vd upon nu, or Vd upon nu, and should be less than 2000 for laminar flow. For a non-circular conduit, the diameter has to be replaced by the hydraulic radius, and that is defined by RH is equal to A upon P, where A is the cross-sectional area and P is the weighted perimeter, that is flow area to the weighted perimeter ratio is our hydraulic radius. So using this hydraulic radius, we define the diameter, we replace the diameter of a non-circular conduit. So suppose if the conduit is somewhat trapezoidal, then we use, suppose we have a channel like this or even a pipe like this, so we use the term hydraulic radius, that is A upon P. A is the cross-sectional area of the flow of the water, that is this much, and P is the weighted perimeter, the perimeter or the length that will be weighted by the water in the channel or the pipe. Suppose for this rectangular pipe, this is the flow, this is the level of water which is flowing, this much will be the weighted perimeter, this length, and this one will be the cross-sectional area. So therefore for non-circular conduit, we will have the hydraulic radius, that is A upon P, that is the flow area to the weighted perimeter ratio, and that will be used in place of the diameter of the circular conduit. For a flow full condition in a circular pipe, the hydraulic radius is 4 times the diameter. So the hydraulic radius is 4 times the diameter in a circular pipe for a full flow condition, and that is therefore RH is equal to pi d square upon 4, pi d square upon 4 upon pi d. Pi d square upon 4 is the area and pi d is the circumference or the weighted perimeter if the flow is full through the pipe. So therefore on simplifying this, we will get RH is equal to D by 4, or D will be equal to 4 RH. So hence we have proved this one, that the hydraulic radius is 4 times the diameter for a full flow condition. And Reynolds number Re, as a note one difference, that RH is the hydraulic radius and Re is the Reynolds number. Please don't get confused between these two. And Re is equal to rho V 4H upon mu, in place of D we will keep it, and therefore V RH upon nu, and that shall be less than 500 for laminar flow in a non-circular conduit. Steady flow in a circular pipe. The steady flow in a circular pipe has a constant flow rate and unchanged velocity profile. So in a circular pipe, we expect that the flow rate should be constant, that is it will be traveling equal amount of distance in the pipe at equal interval of time, that and with equal volume of fluid, that equal volume of fluid per equal amount of time will give us a constant flow rate, and the velocity will also be unchanged in the profile. The velocity will also be constant. So here's a pipe where V is equal to half V max. We are expecting that D is the diameter of the pipe, and we have also similarly taken one element. The coordinate system XR is set up to have X equal to horizontal distance on the flow direction R, which is equal to the vertical distance from the center line of the pipe. That's very obvious. The coordinate system XR will be kept so that we have X equal to the horizontal distance in the flow direction, that is R, and that is equal to the vertical distance from the center line of the pipe. Let D be the diameter of the pipe and R be the radius of the pipe. So D is the diameter of the pipe and R is the radius of the pipe, and the variable R varies from 0 at the center line to R on the wall. So it will be 0 at the center line and R at the wall. The variable R will vary from 0 to R. Thus we can say that 0 to R is a value which is within 0 to R, and it is close to D by 2. The forces applied to a steady laminar flow are in an equilibrium condition. In a horizontal pipe, the pressure force in the flow is balanced by the shear force on the wall. So the shear force is balanced by the shear force on the wall is balanced by the pressure force of the flow. So how it is this is defined by this equation, that is the force due to the shear stress, that is tau times 2 pi r times delta x is the distance, and that is equal to minus del p dp upon dx times delta x pi r square. So if we reduce this equation, it will be somewhat like this, that is tau is equal to minus r by 2 upon dp multiplied by dp upon dx. So let's define the pressure gradient as using the Bernoulli's equation, that is P1 upon gamma plus Z plus V2 square V square upon 2G is equal to P2 upon gamma plus Z plus, this is actually square, so please note the change, plus V square upon 2G plus HF, we consider a head loss, and HF is equal to P1 minus P2 upon gamma, that is minus delta P upon gamma. Considering that the Z is at the same altitude, that is we have a same gradient or same datum height, and the velocities also are same, so therefore it will be the only change in the pressure head that will lead to the head loss. And one more thing, this is equation 1, not equation A. Next is tau is equal to minus r by 2 dp upon dx, which is equal to r by 2 del p upon L, which is r del p upon L, which is r gamma h by 2 f hf by 2 L. So the tau is given somewhat like this, and the laminar flow is the shear stress for the shear stress for the laminar flow is linearly related to the fluid viscosity as the Newton's law of viscosity, and aided by the above relationship, again the equation 1 becomes this, that is this is mu du upon dr, that is the tau, and also we got tau as this one from equation 1, and thus we will equate it and we will integrate the above yields from this one to get this. The integration of the constant C can be determined by u is equal to 0 at r equal to d by 2 on the solid boundary, and thus substituting equation 4 in equation 3, we get u is equal to minus, this will be the value of u on substituting 4 into 3. So This is just by simple mathematics and rearranging equation 5 also. On rearranging this equation, what we will get? U is equal to minus 1 upon 4 mu dp upon dx r square 1 minus r upon small r upon capital R square. At r equal to 0, the center line velocity is as calculated as this one, and substituting um into the equation 7, capital Um into the equation 7 yields the non-dimensional laminar flow velocity profile as this one. This one is our non-dimensional velocity flow profile, and it is a parabolic curve. The above demonstrate that the fact that a laminar flow is parabolic in nature, and for a parabolic velocity flow, the average velocity v is half the center line of the velocity, free stream velocity um. So therefore v is equal to half mu m, and that is equal to r square upon 8 mu times dp upon dx, and it is equal to, further simplification, you will get hf is equal to gamma d upon 32 mu times d upon l, and this is our final equation for hf, that is 64 re ld l upon d v square upon 2g. So if you are asked what is the head loss or the yield, you can say due to the laminar flow, and this is this one and it occurs for laminar flows only. So let's have a discussion over here. Where is the surface roughness in equation 10? So if one is asking that what about if we consider the surface roughness, why the roughness is not considered in equation 10? Does that mean a rough pipe will dissipate the same amount of energy as a smooth pipe? So what is your explanation? So the explanation will be like that: the equation 10 was derived from laminar flows. Let us generalize the loss to include both fluid property Re and the surface roughness as E. So HF is somewhat like this, and F is a function of Re and E upon D. The above function relationship has two extreme conditions. It implies that the laminar flow are dictated by F is equal to function of Re, and the fully turbulent flows are dictated by F is equal to function of E and D, and the transitional flow are dictated by F is equal to function of both Re and E and D. Substituting equation 11 into equation 2. What was our equation 2? This one. Substituting this in equation 2, we will get this equation 12, that is tau upon rho is equal to fb square upon 8, or tau is equal to rho fb square upon 8. For convenience, the ratio tau to rho is termed the shear velocity, where u star, because it has a velocity unit as like this, u star is root under tau upon rho in fps or mps, foot per second or meter per second, or u star upon v is square root of f upon 8. So let us have a question. A crude oil, specific gravity is given, flows through a 12-inch circular pipe over a horizontal distance of 20 feet. So this is the horizontal distance 20 feet, and we have a 12-inch diameter. The deflection on the manometer is 0.155 feet. When using the working fluid with S equal to 2, the flow rate is 2.36 CFS, and determine the velocity distribution, friction factor and shear force on the wall. So let's do this problem. So the velocity is q upon a, and we know that q is 2.36 CFS. CFS is cubic feet per second, because all the units are given in terms of feet, and the area will be pi by 4 d square, where d is the diameter, and that is 1 feet. 12 inch is equal to 1 feet, so it will be 1 square. So velocity will be given by 3 foot per second. 3 feet per second is the velocity. HF is Sm minus S Sm upon S minus 1 times delta H. For a manometer we know it, and it is equal to 2 upon 0.925 minus 1 times 0.155, which is equal to 0.18 feet, because 2 is the specific gravity of the working fluid in the manometer, and here it is given in the question 2 is the specific gravity of the working fluid in the manometer, and the specific gravity of the crude oil is 0.925. so it's like this, that's 2 upon 0.925 minus 1 times 0.155, which is the manometer reading, 0.155 feet. So therefore we get the value of HF from the manometer, that is 0.18 feet, and RE is equal to VD upon nu. So V is 3 feet per second, diameter is 1 feet, and nu is 3 times 10 to the power minus 3, and therefore it is equal to 1000. So we can say it is a laminar flow. Now F is also given by 64 upon RE, which is equal to 0.064. Now check, that is HF is equal to 0.064 times 20 upon 1 times 3 square upon 2 times 32.2, that is 0.18 feet. So this is a check, and therefore is equal to 2 times the velocity, that is 6 fps, because we know that the velocity at the center is half of that is the free velocity. So therefore free velocity is 2 times the velocity v, and therefore it is 6 fps, and therefore u upon is 1 minus r upon 0.5 square. So for instance, at r is equal to 0.25, u is equal to 4.5 fps, and tau upon rho is equal to fp square upon 8, which is equal to 0.064 times 3 square upon 8, and that is equal to 0.072 f upon foot upon second whole square, or tau is equal to 0.129 pounds per feet square on the wall. As a result, for a pipe length L of 10 feet, the friction force on the pipe wall is Ft is equal to tau pi dl, and it is equal to 4.05 pounds. So next, moving on to the turbulent flow. In turbulent flow, we know the fluid particles are in extreme state of disorder. The fluid particles do not have any ordered flow, and their movement is haphazard, and large scale eddies are formed. You will find large scale eddies that are forming in the turbulent flow, and which results in a complete mixing of the fluid. So the layers which were used to flow in a separate ways in the laminar flow will not be occurring in case of the turbulent flow. For turbulent flow, these layers will keep on mixing to each other, and you will find a haphazard flow and large scale eddies. So Boussinesq theory gave that the shear stress is equal to mu du upon dy plus nu or eta du upon dy, where this one is the laminar component and this one is the turbulent component, or if you multiply the density with it, you will get rho mu du upon dy and rho epsilon du upon dy, where u is the time average of the velocity at the point under consideration, mu is the dynamic viscosity, eta is the apparent or eddy viscosity, and epsilon is the kinematic eddy viscosity. So what is eddy? Eddy is the swirling of a fluid and the reverse current created when the fluid is in a turbulent flow regime. So we know there are many such reverse flows that occur, reverse current that occur when we are having a turbulent flow, because the layers keep on mixing and the flow is very haphazard. So therefore we will find many eddies or reverse flows in turbulent flow. As the value of eta varies from point to point, this theory is therefore not in much use. So what is eta? That is the apparent eddy or viscosity. So you cannot say that a fluid flowing through a pipe or a channel will have constant eddy throughout, that is eta. So the eta value will be changing from place to place or point to point in a particular pipe or a channel. So therefore as the eta varies from point to point, this theory will not be very much accurate, and therefore we are not using this particular theory by Vossinesq. So hydrodynamically smooth and rough pipes is our next topic. So what are the hydrodynamically smooth and rough pipes? So first go through the diagram. This one shows a smooth boundary and this one shows a rough boundary. Delta is greater than K and delta is less than K. We have a laminar sublayer over here and a turbulent boundary layer over here. So before getting habituated with this diagram, let us clarify the terms that are available. That is, when the average depth K of the surface irregularities, these are the surface irregularities, and we are considering K as the average depth of this irregularity of the surface. So we cannot say that a pipe, even at a microscopic level, the inner surface of the pipe or for a channel will be smooth. We cannot say it like this. There will be a minimum amount of irregularity present, and whenever this irregularity is large, then we call it a rough boundary. So when the average depth K of the surface irregularities is less than the laminar sublayer of the surface delta, is known as the hydrodynamically smooth boundary. So suppose this is the laminar boundary layer and the average depth of this roughness is lesser than this laminar boundary layer, then we will say that the pipe is hydrodynamically a pipe is having hydrodynamically smooth boundary. Not only a pipe, it might be a plate or even a channel. But the eddy formation which formed outside of the laminar sublayer try to penetrate in the laminar sublayer boundary and is called as the smooth boundary, as shown in the figure. But when the average depth K of the surface irregularities is greater than the laminar sublayer of surface delta, we called it as a hydrodynamically rough pipe. So you can see, so this is the hydrodynamically rough pipe, that is the average height K is somewhat higher than the laminar sublayer. So what will happen if the laminar sublayer is somewhat at a higher level? So what will happen is that the turbulent boundary layer will be somewhat present above this laminar sublayer. So the turbulent flows won't be affecting these surface irregularities if the average height is much lesser than the laminar sublayer. But whenever the laminar sublayer is very close to the rough boundary surface, there is a complete chance that the eddies developing at the turbulent boundary layer will come and affect this surface irregularities, and thus already these layers are so much irregular. Therefore, whenever these eddies will be coming and hitting this one, then there will be large amount of eddies generating, and hence the turbulence will further increase. So at such cases, a smooth boundary is preferable as compared to the rough boundaries. The eddy which formed outside of the laminar sublayer penetrates into the laminar sublayer. Such boundary is called as the rough boundary, as shown in the figure. So Nicoradze did some experiment that if K upon delta is less than 0.25, that is a ratio of the average height of the irregularities and delta, that is our laminar sublayer height, if it is less than 0.25, then it will be a smooth boundary, and if K upon delta is greater than 6, then it will be a rough boundary, and if it is in between, then it will be a transition boundary. In terms of roughness, Reynolds number can be also used like U times K upon V. If it is less than 4, then it is the smooth boundary. U times K upon V is greater than 100, then you will say that it is a rough boundary, and if it lies between 4 to 100, then it is a transition boundary. Fanning equation. So Fanning equation is for a single phase fully developed. So this is the condition for the Fanning equation, that is, for a single phase fully developed flow in a pipe, the shear stress at the fluid solid boundary is balanced by the pressure drop. A one-dimensional force balance equation can be written as this, that is S delta P is equal to tau w times S, where S is the pipe cross sectional area and A is the pipe surface area. Here Tw is the wall shear stress, which is dependent upon the following parameters, and the wall shear stress will be dependent upon this, that is the fluid velocity, the fluid properties namely density and viscosity, pipe diameter and surface roughness of the interior wall. So these were the factors which will be affecting the shear stress, and thus shear stress will be used for calculating the pipe cross sectional area. The first two parameters are due to the nature and the flow characteristics of the fluid itself. The last two depend on the physical geometry of the pipe. The fluid velocity and the density and viscosity is totally dependent upon the nature of the flow and of the flow of the fluid itself, and the last two depend on the physical geometry of the pipe, that is the pipe diameter and the surface roughness of the interior pipe wall. So the stress can be thus expressed as tau times F rho u square upon 2, where F is the fanning friction factor, small f is the fanning friction factor. So next is the most important equation, that is the Karman-Nikuradse equation, where Nikuradse in 1933 measured the velocity profile and pressure drop in smooth and rough pipes, where inner surface of rough pipes were roughened by sand grains of known sizes. He showed that the velocity profile in the smooth pipe is given by u upon u star, which is equal to 1 upon k ln u star y upon nu plus b, where b is given by 0.44 and the value of k, that is the Bohr-Karman constant, and b is an additive constant, and their values are 0.4 and 5.5 respectively. The friction factor can be related to mean flow velocity and Reynolds number by employing equation 1, and it is F is equal to 2 tau upon rho u square. So the equation 1 was like this. On employing this one and the friction factor relating to the mean flow velocity and Reynolds number, we will get this as F is equal to 2 tau omega upon rho u square. The friction factor for smooth pipe is then expressed as 1 upon root f, which is equal to 0.86 ln times Re upon root f minus 0.f, which is also known as the Karman-Nikuradse equation. For rough pipes, the velocity distribution is defined as this, that is u upon u star is equal to 1 upon k ln y by epsilon plus b dash. Here the constant b dash depends on the geometry characteristic of the roughness elements, and it takes value 8.5. So b dash can be taken as 8.5 and k is again constant, that is 0.4. The Nikuradse classified the characteristics of the rough surface into 3 regimes. So Nikuradse did his own classification based on the value of dimensionalness characteristic u star epsilon upon nu, where epsilon is the equivalent roughness height. The 3 roughness regimes are as follows, that is the dynamically smooth will be if the u star upon epsilon upon v value is between 0 to 5, then you can say it is a dynamically smooth pipe. And if it is completely rough, if the value is greater than 70, but if the value lies from 5 to 70, then it is at a transition state. For the completely rough regime, the value of b dash is equal to the constant of 8.48. So if the condition is that it is completely rough regime, the value of b dash is equal to 8.48. The friction factor for the rough pipes can be expressed in a form similar to that for the smooth pipe as this one, 1 by root f, which is equal to 1.14 minus 0.86 ln epsilon upon d. That's the final thing is the Moody's chart. In engineering application, there is a wide range of pipe wall roughness due to the different materials and methods of manufacture used to produce commercial pipes. So in engineering application, there is a wide range of pipe wall roughness because we use different materials for different pipes, and thus we will have a wide range of wall roughness. So Moody used the Colebrook-White formula. So Colebrook-White formula is also a separate formula. If you are interested, then you can check the formula over internet. And to compute the friction factor, Moody used this for the commercial pipes of different materials and summarize the data in form of a graph showing the relationship between friction factor, Reynolds number and relative roughness. So here is the graph. Reynolds number is given in the x-axis and the friction factor is given in the y-axis, and there are various lines or curves that are drawn, and these are for the smooth pipes, and these almost horizontal lines are for the rough pipes. So you can see, if you are increasing in this way or going upwards, there is a increase or there is a change from smooth pipes to complete turbulence or rough pipes. So in between there will be the transition zone. Also, friction factor of Moody is 4 times the friction factor of fanning as defined here. A useful explicit equation that applies to the turbulent flow, that is RE, between this range in both rough and smooth pipes has been presented by Chen in 1979, and this is an equation, and this equation is valid for the Moody's chart. And so now we will do some problems related to this. So before proceeding on to the numericals, I will say one thing, that simple numericals are also available, like using the simple formula of u upon u star equal to 1 upon k ln u star y upon v plus b. Those simple formulas can be used. The problems related to those simple formulas are there, where simple velocity profile will be given and you have to use the roughness equations. So I will not proceed on to those because those are simple. I will do something different, which are really tougher or next level problems. So amongst them, the first is the assuming the flow velocity distribution in a circular pipe u is equal to u max. So this is a flow velocity distribution which is given to us, where u max is the maximum velocity, r is the radius of pipe, u is the velocity at radius r from the center of pipe. We are asked to calculate the ratio of mean and the maximum velocity and the radius at which the actual velocity equals the mean velocity. So let us draw the pipe. Suppose this is our pipe. This is our pipe and this is our inner diameter, suppose, or the inner surface, and this is the cross section. I am considering this as the cross section, and this distance as capital R. Let us consider a cylindrical section like this of elementary thickness. Suppose small r is the radius of this, so we will have something like this. Small r is the radius, and let's also consider another fine strip of thickness dr, and this r, this one is at a distance y from the inner surface, and again this is the radius r. So now you can say that the discharge through this small element let us consider it as dq, is equal to u times the velocity u times 2 pi r times d. So there was a problem with the video, sorry for that. So dq is equal to u times 2 pi r dr, and now integrate for the total discharge, that is capital Q, will be integration of 0 to r dq, that is we will integrate the discharge to the small element from 0 to r, and dq can be written as u 2 pi r dr, that is this. So again now I can do one thing. Before proceeding on to the integration, I will put the value of this u as this one as given in the question. So our integral will be 0 to r u max 1 minus r small r upon capital R to the power 1 by 7 times 2 pi r dr. So what I can do, please write the steps, and I am really sorry about the video problem. There was some technical issues, and yes, okay. After getting this, we can take u max and 2 pi outside the integral, as these are constant terms. So it will be somewhat like this, that is equal to 2 pi u max outside the integral times 0 to r, let us like this, r times 1 minus r upon r to the power 1 by 7 dr. And on solving this, we will get 49 by 60 times u max times pi capital R square. So this is what we get on the integration, and this is our total discharge. And now the mean velocity, that is u, is actually equal to discharge upon the area. The velocity is discharge upon the area. Also we got that u bar is equal to 49 upon 60 u max, right, u times pi r square will be equal to 49 by 60 u max. You can say that this is the u bar, mean velocity is u bar, u by r square, and therefore u bar will be, so I will divide this by just pi by pi r square, so it will be 49 by 60 u max. Just if we divide this total discharge by pi r square, we will remaining with 49 by 60 u max. So I can say it as u bar, as it is the mean velocity. So from this I can write u bar upon u max is equal to 49 by 60, right? Just putting u max on this side, and that is equal to 0.817. And so this is our value or the ratio of u bar with u max, that is mean velocity with the max velocity. And for if I want to make the mean velocity to be the maximum velocity, u bar equal to u max, or sorry, I will say that for a velocity to be equal to the mean velocity for any velocity, suppose u is equal to u bar, so therefore if this is the case, then I will write u bar is equal to u max times 1 minus r upon r to the power 1 by 7, because this was our equation, and now u is equal to u bar. We have now one situation, that is the velocity is equal to the mean velocity. So for mean velocity, the equation will be like this, and also if I divide both sides with u max, then this gets cancelled, and u bar upon u max is equal to 1 by r to the power 1 by r upon r to the power 1 by 7, and therefore I will write 1 minus r by r to the power 1 by 7 is equal to, the value of u upon u max is 0.817 or 49 by 60. I'll write at 0.817, and again on solving this, small r is equal to 0.7579 times of capital R. So this is what we are getting, that R is equal to 0.7579 times of the capital R, and that is the actual velocity is equal to mean velocity at a radius of this. So we can say that the actual velocity, that is small u, is equal to u bar is equal to mean velocity at this radius, and from the center of the pipe. Alternatively, if y is the distance from the pipe boundary, then since y is equal to r minus capital R minus r, because y is capital R minus this small r, right? This y is this r minus this small r, then I can write y, which is capital R minus small r. Therefore it is equal to, I can write r minus small r is 0.759 r, 0.7579 r, and it is equal to thus 0.2421 r. So this is the value of y. So therefore the actual velocity is equal to mean velocity at a distance of this r. So I will write one sentence that the actual velocity is equal to mean velocity at a radius 0.7579 r from center of pipe, which is 0.2421 r from pipe wall. So for a turbulent pipe flow of pipe dia 300 mm, find the discharge when the central line velocity is 2 meter per second and the velocity at a point 100 mm from the center is 1.6 meter per second. So they are saying that the central line velocity here is 2 meter per second and the velocity at a point 100 mm from the center, that is suppose here this point P, this is 100 mm from the center, 50 mm from the wall of the pipe, is 1.6 meter per second. So what is y? Y is the distance from the wall of the pipe, that is y is the distance from pipe wall. R is the radius of pipe, and u bar is the mean velocity, u is the actual velocity, and v star is the velocity at the center. So I'll say that this is the formula. This thing is not given in the theory. This formula is valid for both rough and smooth pipe, and this is the turbulent pipe flow. This is the formula for the turbulent pipe flow. The formulas which we previously derived were just for the laminar case, and this is for just the turbulent. It is valid for both smooth and rough pipe. So using this formula, at y is equal to r is equal to 150 mm, that is at the center, u is equal to u max, that is the maximum velocity. u max minus u bar upon v star is equal to 5.75 log 10 1 plus 3.75. So putting y is equal to r, therefore this will be 1, and thus this one will be eliminated. It is equal to 3.75. So at y is equal to 50 mm, u is equal to 1.6 meter per second, and therefore it will be u minus u bar upon v star is equal to 5.75 log 50 upon 150. Y is 50 and r is 150 plus 3.75, and therefore on solving this we will get it is equal to 1.00656 meter per second. So let us consider that this is our equation 1, this is our equation 2, and this is our equation 3. By 2 upon 3 we will have u max minus u bar upon u minus u bar. So v star will get cancelled for both the cases, and that is equal to 3.75 upon 1.00656. And now putting u as 1.6 and u max as 2, if we simplify and solve for this, we will get u bar is equal to 1.453 meters per second, and therefore the discharge q will be equal to u bar times area, and that is equal to 1.453 times the area, suppose pi d r square by 4, d will be 300, and therefore on solving this we will get the discharge as 0.1027 meter cube per second. So that was about the laminar and turbulent flows. That was all about it, and these are the few important problems. So you will find more other problems regarding the various formulas which we have studied in this chapter, and the formulas on u by u star can be of various forms. So please just look over the internet for them, and you will find various problems over the internet, and please try to solve them. And if there is any kind of doubt, please post in the comment section. Also like and share my video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thank you.